Hello, YouTube, and hello, the Skeptical Heretic. Um, so I watched the the conversation between yourself, Concordance, um, PZ Myers, and the Chupuka, and there are a few issues that I found with that conversation, and the videos sort of leading up to it. By the way, apologies for the darkness of the video. It's almost midnight, and I don't want to wake people up inside, so I'm sitting outside. Um, I had some issues, and my subscribers will notice that I've articulated a lot of what I'm about to say in this video. Um, but I think that the conversation that you guys were having is, I'm making this video response to you specifically because I think this criticism could probably be leveled less against you than the others entailed. Um, I get the sense that there's something like a fallacy of reification present, right? So what a fallacy of reification is where you take a complex intersubjective thing, like the stock market, for instance, and you look at it as an object. So in some sense, the notion that the stock market can crash is a reification. It's because it's not a thing, right? But obviously that's kind of a metaphor. Um, uh, Money is kind of a reification also. It's really a social relation. But I want to suggest that there's kind of a fallacy of reification in how this conversation was was trying to be articulated, right? And the True Puka put up, or his argument was something like, you're renting out an apartment from YouTube, and this is your property, right? Or this is your like leased property or something like that. Um, and Concordance likened the internet to, well, I know Thunderfoot did as well, but to like a public square instead. Um, and I think that both of these are reifications of the internet. Um, I don't think that the internet. I think that what the thing that isn't appreciated nearly enough about the internet is how radically new it is, and how it's something that is developing, and how it's something that's evolving, and and how it's something that we're all contributing to, right? And I just don't think that, in truth, I don't think that we have the theoretical language to actually explicate, uh, uh, a critique of digital capital is really what it would have to be, right? To, you know, piggyback off Marx. It would just developing the language and like the intellectual tools um, capable of deriving normative statements for how we should and shouldn't treat things like the block function, right? On a YouTube channel or something like that. Um, those norms just don't exist yet. And in this sense, I don't think that the internet has, like, this is the most obvious sign for me that the internet actually hasn't come into its own as a medium. Um, it Because there is all this confusion, because we are still using this language, like, people still make arguments like, pirating a CD is the same thing as like stealing a CD off a shelf, which just clearly isn't true, right? You know, if I steal a car from somebody, I'm depriving them of their like property. If I make a copy of something, I'm not depriving anybody of anything, right? So obviously, it's a different. I mean, and obviously that argument can be much more complex. You can talk about lost revenue from a CD that's not bought, and then that runs into a whole bunch of problems, and etc. Um, but what I'm saying here is that the intellectual property. I think intellectual property was always kind of a problem um, for our economic system, right? But the internet has kind of radicalized that, and the explosion of the internet has put us into this situation where we're trying to describe, and we're trying to articulate and elaborate um, uh, ways to handle this, right? To handle the negotiation from the sort of tendency to for information to propagate itself, to negotiate that with you know, this sort of old-fashioned notion of this is my property, right? And if I say that about, you know, the cigarette in my hand, the cigarette doesn't just propagate itself. So it's very different, and it requires different language, and it requires different theoretical tools to get a grasp of. But where I think that you were fairly insightful is the notion that the internet is still young, and I agree. But where this comes to an issue for me is that, and I've stated this argument before, because the internet is still young, and because it's still, at least, so participatory, we're all creating the internet, right? Maybe not the physical hubs or whatever, but we're all creating the content of the internet, if not the form of the internet, right? And in that, I think that there's a kind of dialectic at work between centralized systems and open systems, right? And it becomes, when you start instituting bans, you know, the relationship to the block button becomes what's of interest to me, right? Kind of the existential relationship to the block button. I feel like somebody who's really ban happy, somebody who is really ready to utilize the block button, is making a statement that they want. They're making kind of a defense of centralized systems within the internet. And I think that the person who wants a free and open internet is will have a lot more anxiety when it comes to using the block button, and when it comes to defining, you know, who a troll is and stuff. But this notion of trolling, too, you point out that this capacity has sort of always existed in humans. And it's true that it's always existed in humans, but at the same time, like, I still am hesitant, right? I still want to say that because the internet has sort of radicalized various structures of communication, and sort of unearthed various almost subterranean features of culture, like the troll, right? The fact that that's a central thing, and just not, you know, that guy's an asshole or something like that. The fact that that's something to have a discussion about comes with the rise of the internet. That shift in the structure of how we conceive of human communication, that in itself is it's something. It's a situation where I don't think that you can draw you can't use the same rules in a pre-internet forum to a post-internet forum, right? Because again, like the norms surrounding what a troll is, if we're going to use that word for both situations, the norms surrounding what that is and how that interacts and what effects that has have changed so much. Um, uh, so this is a kind of a criticism of that the point that you make, right? But at the same time, like, it's a criticism of the point that you make by putting it into your own framework of, again, the internet is very new, um, and all of these issues haven't been negotiated, right? Um, but again, all I kind of want to argue for here is a level of, if not specific practices, a sort of level of anxiety when it comes to blocking people, or when it comes to banning people or something like that. I don't think it should be looked at as an instrumental thing, right? Here are my goals, and these are the regulations to put in place to best achieve my goals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think you can quite do that, because I think that all activity on the internet is sort of inscribing how this medium will realize itself in the long run. So we all kind of have a stake in it, and there's a much larger picture at work, and a much more vague and difficult to get our head around picture of it than we would like to admit. So yeah, those are just my thoughts, and have a good day.